Welcome back to LOOPcast. Today, it's the whole gang, Josh, Erica, and Tom. And don't check your 401k would be my first suggestion. We've had a bit of it's not full correction. I think correction is 10% as I'm putting on my amateur economist hat for this episode. But some not very encouraging numbers.
Fret about that. I mean, come on. It's like down 300 total points since election day. It's not that big of a deal. It went up after he won, and then it's coming back down a little bit. So what?
Okay, so should we just end the episode now? Or
pretty much.
So don't worry about it.
All right.
Erica, you're a little crackly today.
Oh, hey, all right.
I will say real quick, before we get into all that other stuff, I had a chance to be on Relevant Radio this morning to talk to voters in Wisconsin about the important Supreme Court race going on there. If you live in Wisconsin, make sure you vote April 1st. Otherwise, you're the fool. We got to get a change of the Supreme Court there. It's a 4-3 left-wing majority, and abortion's before the court right now. This is your chance to turn things around and make sure Wisconsin stays more normal and doesn't go the way of Illinois.
Is there early voting opportunities for that?
Yeah, you can vote absentee, I think, starting like tomorrow. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Wisconsin heads got to get on that.
And then other election news, a left-wing Democrat senator from New Hampshire, Jean Shaheen.
Yes.
Irish-sounding name, is not actually Catholic, but she is Christian and super pro-abortion. She's announcing she's not running for re-election. So that makes the third Senate Democrat. Got Tina Smith, abortion grandma from Minnesota. We got Gary Peters right here in my home state of Michigan. All three of these pro-abortion senators are not running for re-election. And actually, from a strategic standpoint, I think it's pretty smart for Democrats because usually the party out of the White House does well in the midterm elections. So this is their chance to get their old fogies out and get younger, socialists in. But it's also a chance to hopefully make an improvement. I don't know. Minnesota will be tough. My home state originally, and where I'm from, I don't think. But I'd like to see, someone common sense come from Michigan, maybe even New Hampshire.
Yeah, I would. How's the audio? Are we any improvement here?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. So then I'm going to say Jean Shaheen has been a blot on the political landscape of my home state for decades now. She was governor for a while. It's time for her to be gone. And I would love in my lifetime to see New Hampshire return to the live free or die ethos. And
Wait a minute,
happen.
Erica, are you moving back to New Hampshire to announce the run for Senate?
Oh yeah. and I would like to announce my run for governor. No, I am here in Connecticut, the land of McGivney for a good many years to come. But
where your own current senator, Chris Murphy, was.
I was going to say.
Oh, no, don't talk about Chris Murphy. It is like tabloid headline everything. I don't want to talk about Chris.
All right.
I really can't talk about that.
He's kind of got a crazy look in his eye. He's got a real crazy look to him.
There's a scandal involving him and the CEO of these left-wing news outlets. So,
I can see his house.
Really?
The road.
Yeah.
Is that a recent thing?
He left his wife, and now he's
yes.
Having an affair with the CEO of this left-wing media outlet that's funded by George Soros and just, cranking out stories against Republicans.
Optics are not good. And yet I can guarantee he will win in his re-election bid next time it comes around because Connecticut.
It's going to take a while before he changed things in Connecticut.
My favorite weird scandal relationship story in politics currently is Gavin Newsom's ex-wife is now Don Jr.'s wife.
No, they're not together anymore. Don Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle are splits, and she got to be ambassador to Greece. He's dating someone else. Yeah, the Trumps.
I didn't even know there's an update to that.
We're not. Look, I'm pro-marriage. I ain't gonna try to. I can't try to. Yeah.
LOOPcast goes National Enquirer on everyone.
Sorry.
All right, let's get back to biz here, but before we get to any of that,
just so our audience knows, I mean, we call it straight. We're not excusing behavior. I'm like, that's not good.
No. And speaking of straight talk, it's time to switch. Charity Mobile, the pro-life phone company. When you switch to Charity Mobile, 5% of your monthly phone plan goes to a pro-life, pro-family charity of your choice. No extra cost to you. It's everyday living, made effortless giving. It's time to make the switch. Same nationwide coverage. It's all the major carriers. Charity Mobile has a variety of plans to fit every need, from basic talk and text options to unlimited data, and you can get up to 8 lines. They offer a range of phones, from simple flip phones to the latest 5G smartphones, or you can bring your own compatible device, plus no contracts, no termination fees, and a 30-day guarantee. There's no risk. Give them a try. Charity Mobile has been in business for nearly 30 years, providing live US-based customer service by phone, chat, or email. So why not buy the way you believe and support causes that matter to you? With everyday phone use, new customers can get a free phone after instant credit, plus free activation and free standard shipping with the promo code LOOPcast. Thank you so much to Charity Mobile.
Charity Mobile. You
Nice.
know, a lot of people were telling us they like that members of Catholic Vote, we were supporting those women with the legal case that was going on in Minnesota. These poor women who were coerced into having abortions. And so how can you help? How can you help? Hey, if you sign up for Charity Mobile, you can have 5% of your bill go right to the Catholic Vote Education Fund. Select us as your charity, and you can help out those moms, those women that felt horrible situations. We're making sure they don't have to pay a dime to represent these. There's a lot of hefty legal bills. We're going to support them so they don't have to do anything. And so, hey, that's a way where, just like Tom said, you can use Charity Mobile. Most of us have phones anyway. Why not just work with a phone company that supports the kind of values you do, and you can get 5% right back to the Catholic Vote Education Fund. So sign up, Charity Mobile.
Amen to that. So this next section here, it's got a lot of moving parts. We're talking about tariffs. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about the stock market. And yes, Josh may think it's fake. The numbers, some could argue there's a cooking going on, but S&P 500 down 8.6% from mid-February peak. Yeah. Not nothing. Yeah. And this is significant, obviously, to, I would guess, many people in our audience have a 401k or invested in the stock market. Over 50% of Americans are. So whenever you see, I see headlines like this, sometimes it's kind of hard to get deep into the numbers here. But the bottom line is, yes, this affects over half of America. This is a really serious issue, not just for super rich people, but for middle class and even people in lower class that have a lot of money saved for retirement. This is a negative year to date after record-breaking 2024 with 50 highs. Now, there's two main arguments I want to get into as to why we see a dip like this. First, being tariff uncertainty. There's been a lot of tariff talk. I think the latest addition to the tariff saga was, I want to say it was the leader of Ontario basically said, hey, I'm going to cut off electricity.
Put a tariff on electricity. That's right.
No, not just put a tariff on it. He said, actually, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to cut electricity to Michigan, New York, and I believe one other state. And Trump did not take to that too kindly. I think he said, all right, 50% tariffs on Canada. If you put anything on energy, 50% tariffs. I mean, he brings up a good point, which I think is a part of the larger point on why do we have the current arrangement that we do. So from his Truth Social, we have, why would our country allow another country to supply us with electricity, even for a small area? Who made these decisions and why? And can you imagine Canada stooping so low as to use electricity that affects the life of innocent people as a bargaining chip and threat? They will pay a financial price for this so big that it will be read about in history books for many years to come. But the first argument on tariffs is, yes, uncertainty when it comes to international investors as to what the United States plan and role is in the global economy certainly does spark some fears. But the Trump argument to that would be, we've been living in these arrangements that really don't make a sense for Americans, especially on an American first basis. We're in trade surplus currently with 3 countries. China's the big one, but there's a lot of questions being opened up about Canada. So that being said, that's the first reason. Would you like to say anything on the tariff strategy from Trump? How you feel about it? Do you think it'll be effective? Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole tariff thing, I've been reading up on it, and it really comes down to who do you ask in terms of, is this good? Is this bad? It does seem a little puzzling. So for me, just personally, I get it with China and Mexico. I think we do need to push back on them. It is pretty clear that they have been in cahoots with each other in terms of the fentanyl crisis, drugs coming across the border, and using it as, using the tariffs as a stick to go to Mexico and do some kind of action when it comes to the border, and also to, to ward off China. That makes sense. Canada, I'm having a hard time understanding the Canada tariff thing and this sort of obsession. I do feel like Trump going so hard on Canada might actually end up pushing Canada into an even more liberal government. That's not going to be good for anyone. I mean, Pierre Poilievre is now way down in the polls just because he's seen as Trump friendly. And Canadians are like, oh my gosh, America's trying to take us over as a state. So I think this sort of courting frenemies with Canada. That term's come up a lot, like we're going to be frenemies. I love that term. But it seems to me that the Canada, it is a key trading partner. Like, it is a little hard to understand. It is number one. So I understand, in a sense, the tariff thing, as I think it's a gamble on Trump's part, that we're going to push this really hard right now, get this reset on the global economy and America's role across the world, including with Canada. We're going to push like into a recession now so that we can rapidly get better in a sort of like middle to long term improvement plan. I think it's a huge gamble, and it makes me nervous. There's a little cold water now on my Trump enthusiasm, for sure, because we don't know how the other countries are going to respond to something like equal reciprocal tariffs. And we only have 18 months before midterms. And I think that there's a lot more to be lost if we do end up in a recession, because Americans aren't like, okay, tell me all the nuances of how tariffs long term are going to reset, blah, blah, blah. Like, most people are not Tom, Erica, Josh, and everyone in the chat who like looks at all the details of these things and thinks about long term effects. Most people just see my 401k is down and I can't retire like I thought it was going to until it comes back up. So I think it's an enormous gamble on the Trump part.
I hear you see the 401k. It's down 8%. I mean, and again, like I said, it had gone up about 6.5% since election day anyway. So it's not like a correction like we saw with the pandemic where it dropped like by a third. Like that would be a real, that would make you pucker up. But like, I think with regards to the tariffs, we're going to have to see how this shakes out. I mean, to the extent that we're making sure that they're not, my concern, like I expressed a few episodes ago before, was that you're basically, if you want to be a trucker in Canada, you just have to pay someone money in a parking lot and you get a license, and then you can just run any kind of truck across the border. And then all of a sudden, bang, in Indiana, we find this Canadian truck that's got tons of fentanyl, and we bust them. It's like, well, wait a minute, now this is not cool. So to the extent that we're pushing back on that, and I mean, Michigan is not where I'm at, is not as big of a dairy place as Wisconsin, but it's still Midwest, a lot of dairy. And it's like, I had no idea until very recently that Canada is putting like 250 to 300% tariffs on dairy.
Right.
So that seems excessive, especially with us. I thought we were a big trade partner. So to the extent that Trump's pushing back a little bit, I like this, but he's doing a lot of bluster, and you're raising the stakes, and no one's going to want to cry uncle. And so you have to kind of find a way to let both sides win. And right. I think what happened a little bit yesterday, where they both were shouting out at the beginning of the day, the premier of Ontario, and then, Trump and stuff like that. And then we had some guys behind the scenes try to work out some details, and they came to the table, and the electricity thing was off the table. Now that threat's gone. And also our doubling the tariff threat is off the table for now. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to come to the table. And then Trump was kind of privately grousing that his trade guy wasn't doing good for him. And so, we'll see. But ultimately, it's fun because you get arguments about this, online, and the libertarians are the first to say, oh, tariffs aren't free trade, it's tax and all this stuff. Yes, it is actually a tax. Of course it is. I know it is. And so to the extent that we're throwing on a bunch of tariffs, I'm not exactly happy with, but if we use it as a stick to try to get a better free trade agreement with Canada and get them, making sure they're not sending just any old guy driving a truck across the border, then I think it's good. Overall, I'd prefer to have less tariffs, just like I'd like to have less taxes. But it's kind of funny that, like when you have a discussion on tariffs or minimum wage, that you get these like libertarian androids like, don't you understand this is inefficient? It's like, okay, if I have to choose between taxes, I'd rather have a tariff than 30% of my income going away in income tax. Not that he kind of floated that as an idea. I don't think that's going to happen. Get rid of the income tax.
Right.
But overall, I want less tariffs. Yeah. But if we're going to be strategic about it and make sure that the other side's playing fair, then I'm going to let him play it out a little bit.
Right. Like I liked the tariff game at the beginning, right after his inauguration, where he's like, okay, we're going to levy these tariffs on Mexico and Canada. They start on Friday, and Mexico and Canada come back and say, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, we're going to close our borders. We're going to put 10,000 troops on the borders. We're going to address the fentanyl crisis. And then Trump's like, okay, fine. We will walk back the tariffs. Like that kind of a use of it for negotiating an actual policy, like you were saying with the truckers, Josh, totally agree. Where I start to get confused is, if this is a long-term economic plan, I would like to, like, one of the reasons I voted for Trump was we got to make those tax cuts permanent, like more of a push on the tax cuts being permanent, more of a push on the deregulation that gives investors confidence in investing in the market. So to go so heavy on the tariffs right now, rhetorically, it seems like we should be pushing on all three of those fronts if we're going to use tariffs in terms of like long term.
If I'd like to make a point,
go ahead.
Sorry, briefly before both of you do, and you brought up libertarians, Josh. I guess what is kind of rich to me about this whole conversation about libertarians being mad about efficiency and whatever, like these are the same people that are pro-free mass migration, illegal immigration, because it technically adds to the GDP and productivity. What, of course, if you look at it in real terms as an American, no, it's not best for Americans. No, it's not best for real wage of Americans. And no, it's not best for law and order. So similarly, to me, there's kind of these like economic games that go on, like GDP, labor force participation rate, unemployment, U3, like the way that they capture some of these metrics. For example, like the labor force participation rate may go up, like, oh man, this is so great. But it's like, oh, you find out that mostly it's foreign born workers that gained, and it's also part-time work that's gained. And it's not really like a
or
salary
moms that leave, that say we're going to put our kids in school because we need to make more money, and she leaves the house. Like, that's not a success to me.
Exactly. So that's why I think it's wise for people not to get too deep into the individual games and freak out about small things like this. And I'm trying to look at Trump's big picture play here because he is so bombastic over the tweets. But like two things are true, I think, broadly. The US government was basically addicted to printing money in an unprecedented manner, probably since 2008 in the COVID era. So we're talking about like $5 trillion just printed, doing things like quantitative easing, stimulus checks. Like inflation was a huge problem.
You're saying from the Great Recession through COVID. Right. I agree. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I have some statistics on it. I mean, let me grab my statistics really quick. You can keep going for a second.
And then it's the thing about inflation, which is what you're talking about. See, people think inflation just means, gosh, the price of things are going up. Okay. But truly, inflation, the erosion of your dollar, what that means is the government is pumping too much cash into the economy, flooding it with extra cash. And so that everything you try to buy, you're competing with everyone else who's suddenly got more cash. And gosh, the prices start going through the roof. That's the problem. I mean, when you talk about inflation, and that's why it hurts so bad. It hurts actually the people on fixed incomes. It hurts the people trying to start families. It's bad.
Yeah. So on the market correction, I think that the market was basically propped up on a ridiculous and inflationary
cheap credit,
right? Cheap cash, liquid cash. Like rates were basically near zero,
right?
Tons of quantitative easing. So like
now, Tom, you're looking to get a new house. You're right at that point, right? And it's hard to find a house because a lot of the boomers locked in those rates at 3%. Why would they sell their house?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any new house they get, they're going to pay 6%. This matters so much. I know you get it. I'm just trying to. Like the problem with the cheap credit, the thing is, it's sort of like drinking alcohol. Okay, and so like if you here comes a hangover, I'll just hair of the dog, I'll just drink more, and so you just never sober up. Well, that's what's going on. Our federal government is like keep drinking, keep inflating the currency, keep pushing more money into the economy. And you know what you need to do is you need to pull back and you got to rinse it out. It's not fun.
And it's not fun. And I think Erica brought up there's going to be a brief hurting period. It's going to hurt a little bit as coming off a hangover does. But I think two things need to adjust. Like the stock market and companies need to adjust to America not continuing a insane inflationary spending streak that we saw at $5 trillion in 2021, which is just unbelievable. So that's not going to continue. So markets need to adjust to that. Companies need to adjust to that. You're not going to be getting this free quick cash from government anymore. It's not going to happen. And for that, hopefully inflation comes down. And I did see that it did come down a little bit. Again, it's an inflation increase rate. So the CPI came out. Inflation went up by 2.8%. However, that's less.
It's a slower increase
what it had
than
gone
it
up
has
previously,
been.
which we bring this up every time. It's important to be
That's
specific.
just prices, though.
Yes,
just so we understand.
right? Just prices. I said
Not
the CPI
inflation.
report.
Yeah,
CPI report.
That's why I don't like it. It's like inflation is the increase in the money supply, and the CPI is the rise in prices. There's two different. I mean, obviously they have a relationship. But.
Yeah, and if I could land the plane here, so those companies need to get used to that. The stock market needs to get used to that. We're not playing games with that anymore. I think the rest of the world needs to get used to. We're not going to keep operating off of a $1 trillion trade deficit with China, with Canada, with Mexico. And Trump's argument is we're basically subsidizing these countries by poor trade agreements that do not benefit America. Now, I think the long-term gamble on this is he is hoping that through tariffs, one, it could be a legitimate source of revenue, which he's made large estimates and it may come down, but yes, it could be a source of revenue. Also, it could mean companies, hey, either I'm going to bring my company to the United States and we're going to build here. I think recently a chips manufacturer said, hey, we're going to expand operations. Apple, we're going to expand operations. Bring the jobs here in the United States, bring the manufacturing here. Because, of course, if you look back to when we started manufacturing jobs, he's made that promise over and over and over again. And yes, we have manufacturing levels that have been consistent over the past couple of years, certainly not since 1979, but the type of manufacturing is really important. And I think specifically why the chips are so important is because AI really looking poised to be the next big thing. Part of the silver lining I think people have brought up by the crazy inflationary spending was that AI has emerged from that as actually a real innovative good. Like people look at Apple or people look at other things. When's the last time they've come up with a really revolutionary product that's actually changed the game, unlocked a lot of innovation, and therefore a lot of value? And people are seeing AI as basically like an arms race at this point, poising America to the front of that, not just in like the service-based economy we have, but in terms of real production of the chips. Right. If we have the chips here, we don't have to rely on places like Taiwan or places like other countries, China specifically. I would hate to have to do that. So I think it's a long-term play to basically get off the hangover, reorient us for strength and success, bring jobs here. And it's probably going to make a lot of the highfalutin economists or the globalist economists or the libertarians angry. But I actually love making those people. I love making those people angry. It's my favorite because all hate
speaking of Apple, I mean, like, not build your phones in China and build more of them here in the United States. That's the best thing about what I think the tariffs are. If you slap tariffs on China, it balances that market there because right now it's so cheap to build in China because you have near slave wages.
Right.
And so if you slap a tariff on it, then a business is like, well, I might as well just build it here. Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, it's absolutely insane, criminally insane that the Communist Party in China is like, let's let these companies come in and we'll treat our own citizens like, cattle fodder because we don't care. Like we just want the money because they're evil, communist, greedy people. Like that's terrible. Right. I'm talking about the leaders of China now, not the Chinese people, of course. But that's it's arbitrage. The tariffs. That's good.
It'll be interesting to see how individual states respond here in the U.S. because obviously I would love to see more deregulation at the federal level to encourage these companies in a positive way to come here and do business. But also it'll be interesting to see how individual states approach regulation. Because you think of, okay, if we have all these billion-dollar contracts coming in from, say, Taiwanese chip companies, et cetera, they're going to be looking at, okay, well, which state do I want to operate in? Do you want to be in crazy New York, California, Connecticut? Or do I want to go somewhere and like Texas, Florida, where there's more deregulation? And hopefully that pressure will bring down some of the regulation in the blue states if they're smart, right? If they actually care about the people who live, their citizens, which is up for questioning, Chris Murphy.
Well, I mean, as they said, when Rahm Emanuel was on the Bill Maher show, like it was everyone just understood that Democrat-run cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York are going to crap.
Josh, did you see he's planning to run?
Who's planning on running?
Rahm,
2028.
For what?
President.
Come on, really?
Yes.
He has
political article
almost
this
as much
morning.
hair gel as Gavin Newsom. So we could have like a battle of the bouffants with
Well,
the Democratic nominee.
The other person from Illinois, the governor, JB. Pritzker, he went to New Hampshire.
Oh gosh.
So
also, did you see Gavin Newsom's having Steve Bannon on his podcast?
I did.
I have to give all the credit in the world to Gavin Newsom.
Just two Catholic boys. Should be
yeah. This Gavin Newsom podcast is like a million times better than I thought it could ever be. He had who else did he have?
Charlie Kirk. Charlie
Kirk was the first one, but he had Michael Malice on, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
did he? Wow.
Kudos to Gavin. He's going and having all of the heavy hitters on. Like, man.
Yeah,
got nothing but credit for Gavin.
It scares me.
Steve Bannon. Oh man.
Steve Bannon's wild. Like I was like, okay, he's serious he's really married to the game here. Okay.
I just listened to Steve Bannon and Ross Douthat duke it out on the New York Times podcast. By the way, that was actually really interesting.
That was really good.
It was really good, right? If you need some weekend reading.
Steve Bannon and Tim Dillon episode was fantastic as well. Tim Dillon's a little controversial figure, maybe to some. I thought that because he's a comedian, I'm like, wow, he really knows his stuff.
I was accused by a family member of being a female Steve Bannon. And so I was like, I better go listen to this. Because I had never listened to him before. And I was like, this is amusing, but I think you have it wrong.
Well, you have to wear like 3-button shirts like he does,
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
Your hair looks way too nice.
Very colonial.
I appreciate it, Josh.
Okay, so here's something that I'm interested in here. So it's still kind of ongoing. And I really honestly want to get perspectives on this. So Mahmoud Kahil.
Mahmoud, not
Mahmoud?
Mahmoud
Khalil.
Yeah.
Basic summary on this. He was a student at Colombia that enjoyed the status of having a green card, so permanent legal resident status. And he was a Palestinian activist at college, and he was a part of these protests. It's kind of coming out now what his exact involvement is. And so at this point, he actually has been detained by ICE, and Marco Rubio is revoking his green card status. So a federal judge at this point has blocked his deportation, I believe, in saying he needs to get a day in court, which I'm actually totally fine with. I think that it's good that stuff comes out at this point, but arguments as to whether or not this is a violation of a First Amendment right. Did Trump go too far? What does this say for all college students? Was it correct? Where are we at on this? I'll start with you, Erica.
Yeah. So he is another interesting thing that doesn't come up a lot is he married a U.S. citizen. So his wife, who's 8 months pregnant, is also she is a U.S. citizen. So there's also that other tie.
Whoa.
I hear a voice. Is that me?
Yeah, you were
my
like underwater
gosh.
for a second. All right, go ahead.
Oh, it was because Twitter started playing automatically.
I thought we were in the Twilight Zone already.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. Sorry, guys. So with Mahmoud Khalil, obviously a lot of people are crying. This is a free speech issue, and even people who are non-U.S. citizens have the right to free speech. I think what we need to do before we assess is go back and ask the question, is this actually about free speech? And Marco Rubio came out right before the show, and he corrected this record that this is not an issue of free speech. This was an issue of aiding and abetting terrorist organizations and voices. This is a national security issue. It is not like, don't make this about, a sob story about how he has the right to say anything. Look, my take is he's here on the sufferance of the United States. It is a privilege to study here at our great, quote unquote, is Columbia great? I don't know, institutions. And if you are going to go around organizing protests that are so violent and threatening that students, because of their race, in this case, Jewish students at Columbia, were in fear of their lives. They couldn't leave their dorm rooms. Some of them, they were having like Nazi symbols spray painted everywhere in the Jewish housing. They wouldn't go to the dining halls because of the kids serving the food or wearing like these scarves saying Hamas. They're like, okay, what's going to be in my food? This was a dangerous situation for these people. And this man was responsible for organizing that. He's a pro-terrorist organization. He should just be out. I'm sorry. Like, the same rules do not apply to you. It's even questionable if an American citizen should be organizing protests on behalf of Hamas. So definitely
it's one thing
not
to organize
for
protests, but as you say, it's the threats, the coercion, and they took over buildings. It's like it's not just holding a sign and saying I don't like this.
Right.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what actually comes out in court. I doubt it's going to be televised, but I'm sure that they're going to have to come forward with the findings. Yeah, I don't know what I know. He's saying don't make it a free speech issue.
I kind of feel like
whatever. If I could, Josh, whatever our policy is much too generous to allow. Like I'm trying to imagine me studying in a Japanese university. It really doesn't matter what the cause is. I know that it's really a hot button because it's Israel, and Israel does have a lot of influence in U.S. politics. People have a lot to debate about what's going on in the region. But really, regardless of cause, if I were to go to a foreign country and occupy buildings on behalf of another foreign country, the easiest decision ever in the world to say, all right, you're gone. Like you got to leave. It really does not matter what the cause is to me. You're a guest in the country. It just on principle seems insane. I don't know what the actual law is, honestly, when it comes to First Amendment rights and foreign citizens. I saw that there was a court case in 2018. I believe a Trinidadian, I don't know how to pronounce that name, was doing protests on behalf of immigration law, and his deportation order was actually stayed. So there is a little bit of precedence here. But I mean, if you're occupying a building and kidnapping people, sorry, you're gone. Like I don't know what to say.
But if every single Jew at this campus feels completely petrified and scared to even walk around or leave their dorm rooms because of your so-called protest behavior, yeah, kick them out. And if the law is wrong, then the law is wrong. Although I do want to ask, see these liberals, these left-wing radicals, it just kind of strikes me as odd. It's so courageous to talk about a statue of George Washington that's bad, but this college is named Columbia. It's named after Christopher Columbus. Why don't you change the name of your school? Because it's so prestigious. Columbia. I went to Columbia. Well, maybe we should change it to, New York local college.
Community college, gateway community.
Why don't you have a little spoonful of your own sugar on this? It's like, I went to Columbia. Oh, so you love Christopher Columbus. Is that what it is?
So, and also Rubio himself authorized the arrest. So as Secretary of State, it actually isn't, he did it legally under the powers enjoyed by the Secretary of State. They did this to a Mexican national a while back. It's not used very often, but it is. So to me, this just brings up broader discussions of, what is acceptable behavior from people that enjoy this legal status green card to come study in our country. Like, I actually like, regardless of how this plays out, I'm glad this debate is being taken up. And I like the message that this sends, because it really doesn't matter what it is. You could be a college student, you could be something else. Like, you should not be here causing problems in our country.
But it's not just a debate. I think what you're getting at, Tom, is the consequences. Like, the Trump administration is like the first Republican administration to actually have some teeth behind what they do. 100%. Normally, Republicans would be like, they shouldn't be doing that. It's the Trump administrations that are arresting the guy and trying to kick him out of the country and saying, oh, by the way, $400 million in federal grants and loans, bye-bye, cutting Columbia off. And Columbia's like, what? Yeah. You mean there's consequences to what I do? Right. Yeah, you're right, there are.
I would say that's the big difference in the Trump administration. I actually was reading a Jewish Democrat who's like, I've been a faithful Democrat my entire life. And you're like, how are you going to keep me? Like, I'm looking at executive action from the president to actually punish people that have physically threatened my life. Like, this whole debate, I think, is getting kind of stupid.
In the water, buddy.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, it really is hard to mount an argument on defense of, traditional Jewish Democrats at this point. Like, this is a real serious action swiftly taken to protect the lives. And this is directly after Joe Biden did absolutely nothing for 4 years. I mean, we just let this happen.
You know what we could do? What country is this guy from? We could maybe just Syria.
Oh, geez, not a great place to go.
Maybe we could just deport the Columbia University to Syria, and they can have it.
I mean, they could actually get their boots on the ground in the fight for a Palestinian homeland if they just went over there. I think too, like, there was a right wing, person online who is very pro free speech, and they're like, well, this sends a chilling message on free speech. And again, where have you been for the last 4 years? The chilling message on free speech has been entirely directed at the right and at Jews trying to defend themselves and like defend their people in this. There has been a marked rise in anti-Semitism that people love to bring out, but then conveniently forget when the Trump administration actually takes action to do this. And I think Scott Jennings on MSN, he's like, look, either we take actions like what Marco Rubio just did with this guy, or we become the United Kingdom. And everyone can look over there right now and see what happens when you don't crack down on this extremist Islamic terrorist speech, quote unquote, which is really just violent demonstrations that actually threaten people's lives. And for me, I'd rather not go the direction of the UK. And this is the kind of speech, quote unquote, we should crack down on. So I'm all for it. Get him out of here. It's a privilege to be here, and he did not earn the right to stay.
Yeah, 100%. Doesn't matter who you are. Sweet. Moving on. Okay, so I have viral clip of the day, and then I have enter the refinery. I think we do viral clip, then we enter the refinery.
Does Josh know about the refinery? We're gonna have to explain.
No, we're gonna drop
refinery.
it on him.
Okay, new segment, Josh, for you.
New segment for Josh.
Okay. Let's do viral clip.
So viral clip of the day. I don't know if the people are familiar with Jubilee, but they have, honestly, the format kind of annoys me, but there's really good clips that come out of it. But it's basically like 20 people are around in a circle and there's one person. And so today's episode was 20 Trump supporters versus one liberal. And
oh boy,
this
Sam
Seder, I guess was a pretty well-known Democrat. He had like 250,000 followers on Twitter. I didn't really know about him before. And then this girl who turns out to be Catholic was there as well. And it gets heated. It gets intense. This clip went mega viral. I think worth watching in its entirety to get your thoughts on exactly how you feel. Here we go.
Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
Like
xenophobic nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian,
it's rooted in European identity.
White. So your argument is that
has been the dominant culture.
Just to be clear,
and we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of America...
For the majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah. Maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No, it doesn't mean
now instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia.
Dominant culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. You and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And people, I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Trump's basically a Democrat from 15 years ago when it comes to social issues.
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely. Nowhere close.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to import a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh, so you want to get them out too? Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're making my argument for me.
Okay.
Josh got a kick out of that one.
I know. I'm gonna send her a loop mug.
Oh my gosh. Well, to set the stage though, so the way that this works is the person sitting in the hot seat, so Sam Seder here, he gets to make a statement, and then the people around him get to rush and sit down and respond to that statement or engage them on that statement. And his statement was, in part, if you are a xenophobic nationalist, then voting for Trump made sense, or something to that effect. So he was the one who set out the term xenophobic nationalist. And when she sat down, she turns that right around on him because he's using that term as a pejorative, and she throws it right back at him. and redefines it as Christian nationalists that isn't this what we are? Isn't this a good thing? And why would you say this is a bad thing? And what's your alternative vision? And he can't give an alternative vision besides melting pot, which, as she points out, is you melt together to become part of the dominant thing in the pot. It's really badly put. But anyway, it's
which is
really
why some
interesting
lefties don't like
exchange.
melting pot. They think it's a salad and we get to throw in whatever you want.
Oh, I haven't heard
Ooh,
salad.
I
That's
like
a new
that.
Yeah.
Good analogy,
I don't.
Josh.
I mean, that's what they say. I'm not saying it. Well,
one. Josh.
no, I thought that was pretty good. I mean, it's interesting that she says. I mean, like, wouldn't you just? I mean, do you disagree that we weren't a predominantly European Christian culture from the time of our founding till at least the 1960s? And that's true. I mean, what she says is undeniably true. Incidentally, it's not like what Sam took that to mean is that, oh, you're just like a white supremacy, that kind of stuff. It's like, no, not really. It's just like the Christian European heritage obviously is predominantly, everyone gets caught up in skin color. Yeah. Okay. It's
Right.
white.
Yeah, but people were white. I don't.
Yeah. But it's
that's a slur?
But
now?
we've been actually expansive of it. Like in the United States, like, it used to be that whites were only considered people that were from like, England and France and Scandinavia. And, they would say,
the Black
they would
Irish,
say to
the
your
Black
people,
Italians,
Pogo,
right.
you're not white enough. They would say to the Slavs,
Oh yeah,
and they
my
would
Slavic
say to
brothers.
they would say to the Slavs and the Italians and the Greeks, they weren't white. And it was only into like the 50s that they would start to identify Italians and Greeks and Slavs as if they were white. And by the way, I've been saying this for this next thing I've been saying for over 10 years. 30 years from now, everyone will think of Latinos as white.
100%.
Interesting.
Yep. Especially with the swing to the Republicans. They're
Very
totally going to be
interesting.
classified with white.
I mean, Starr County, where our boy Steve Cortez went down there, this county in Texas, it's the most Hispanic county in the United States. It's like 97%. And they swung like 70 points towards Trump. And that's why the ladies on The View are like, oh, they're all misogynist. Oh, you mean these voters are misogynist? They voted for Hillary Clinton back in 2016, okay. But they're misogynist because they're sick and tired of the crazy trans pro-abortion Democratic Party that worships crime. So it's interesting, though, what this woman said. It all kind of started to change in the 1960s. That's when the counterculture rose. The hippies, and also
it was mass
the Immigration Act in
Mass
1965 passed
right.
by Teddy Kennedy. So yeah, I mean, that's when we're like, we got to get rid of these racist things. We can't actually try to, if we're going to import only so many immigrants, the thought was, well, bring people from Europe because it's part of our common culture. And it's like, that's racist. You got to be completely random lottery. Well, that's stupid. And actually, it's like not even a white thing. I'll take Cubans. I'll take Koreans. I'd like people who have a culture that's based on, free enterprise, based on rule of law. Yeah, I don't want to just bring in any culture off the planet. Give me a break.
The multiculturalism argument has been thoroughly defeated by saying there are some cultures that are better than others, and it's okay to acknowledge that.
But our laws aren't.
Can I just get back? No.
Yet.
I really have to get back to the beginning on this. I think we've become so conditioned to hear the word white as a slur that it makes people squeamish. I don't think it certainly is not factually incorrect that America was founded by white people as we define them now by Europeans, right. And that it was founded as a Christian country. I mean, you hear the word God in the Declaration of Independence, Deuteronomy laid it throughout our legal system. The fundamental dignity of the human person, certainly a part of not a feature, not a bug of the American system. That being said, so much good obviously has been created by the founding of that country on these principles. So good, in fact, that many people want to come here, immigrate here, and be a part of it. I don't think so good, obviously, but the way that it's spoken about is that somehow it's this evil empire, colonialist empire, where there's slavery, nothing good ever happened. And yet for all of that talk, everyone wants to come here. I think it's okay to acknowledge that the system that was built, that has advanced to where it is now, but the people that were a part of building that system, yes, they were white, did a lot of good, and that coming here, their DNA is inherently a part of the current American project that we have now. I don't think there's anything wrong in that. I'm almost frustrated that it's being used by Sam Cedar as like, oh my gosh, that gives me the ick that you said that, white Christian Europeans did that. I'm like, yeah, they did. And it was awesome. And it continues to improve, but it's a fundamentally good thing.
Right. I want to just refine that point a little bit, because I think that we can get hung up on the white, the race, the skin color thing, because we've been conditioned to, again, like white bad, black good, blah blah blah.
Yep.
I think that white is an accident. When you look at the American founding, the whiteness of the skin tone of the people who landed here and founded America is an accidental. It's a historical reality that's accidental. The core of why America was successful is the Christian values thing. It's not that they came from England, so this was great, or they came from China, so this was bad. It's that the people who landed here and founded this nation had a Christian value system, which is de facto the only system that allows for an expanding multiculturalism, right? The only way that many cultures can live together is if everyone within those cultures latches onto and adheres to the fact that we are all created by God and made in his image. Therefore, every culture has meaning and purpose. It has a purpose within the larger project of the kingdom of God, right? So once you lose Christianity, multiculturalism just becomes a mishmash of people trying to get along together, and they have to find some new religion. Oh, wokeism, LGBTQ, Sam Seder, right? Or what is it? Tolerance, right? Coexist. None of that hangs together unless you maintain the Christian identity, because Christianity is the only worldview that says, yeah, we can welcome people from many cultures, but everyone has to adhere to this. Everyone has natural rights given to them by God, by their creator, and that no government can grant or take away from them.
Let me wrap it up with one sentence. It's not about the skin color. I agree. And no one hates white liberals more than me.
Well, Josh, I was going to test you. What's the John Adams quote about the American system of government? Created for a wholly moral and religious people.
Yeah.
Wholly inadequate for anyone but. I mean, exactly. I think that's part of the problem.
Alexis de Tocqueville has it. Right.
It's like we have the country, the system, it was all built upon Christian values, Christian ethos. And we are now living in a country that, take race out of it, is largely not a majority Christian anymore. It's like, how can you, there's another part of this debate too, where he was kind of questioning on his own beliefs and about religion. And he's like, oh, you can be moral without being religious. And he's like, okay, so then what's your basis for morality? And he's like, well, I don't know. And I could not believe how not prepared he was to answer that question, because
I think he should have known.
He's like, oh, so you're basically a consequentialist. And he's like, no, but trans people have rights. And it's like, well, how would you determine that? Is it just, what if a majority of people said that trans people don't exist and don't have rights? Like, well, that'd be wrong because they have human rights. It's like, it's just such a shape-shifty game. Like, unless you have actual basis for morality based upon natural law, God as the supreme creator, we're all made in the image of God, this idea of Christian dignity, how we should relate to each other, what we owe each other through justice. It is kind of funny how
it's from Christianity and Judaism.
Yeah, it's all from Christianity. And I think that when people have the hubris to be like, I can have morality without Christianity, and they just came up with it like 50 years ago, is like, are you serious? Like, there's not thousands of years of precedent before that philosophy to think about these kind of things?
Yeah, it's fascinating debate. Everyone should go watch it. Yes, it was the Free Press, but it was a really great conversation. They did a debate last week with Ross Douthat and Ayaan Hirsi Ali versus, I can't remember, Adam Carolla, and then the guy in charge of Skeptic Magazine. And it was, does America need a religious revival? And it was a fascinating exchange. I would encourage everyone to go and watch it. It's about an hour and 15 minutes, but you can skip all the Barry Weiss talk, just like chop that out, and it gets under an hour. So, but it was exactly this issue. Okay, at one point, the founder of Skeptic Magazine's like, okay, well, I believe in rights. Like, there is no God, and we only came up with rights after we started to divest ourselves of God. And this was like an Enlightenment thing. And then we got rights. And Ross Douthat stops and he's like, wait. Can you tell me where these rights are? Are they here in the room with us now? Where do these rights adhere? Where do they sit? And he just couldn't answer. There's no answer to it.
There's no answer good enough for that. There isn't.
Right.
Unsurprising.
So Sam Sater might have anticipated it, and there's just no good answer.
Ross has had a boss month, man.
He has had a
big
boss
month for the boy Ross.
It's probably
Wasn't he on
exhausting.
with Bannon too? Or
Yeah,
this
he's
someone
the one
else?
who
Yeah,
he interviewed
that's what
Bannon
we-
for New York Times.
Oh, is this the same one we're talking
Yes,
about?
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay. It's been a big Bannon.
And then he was
episode.
on this debate at Free Press, which was, although Ayaan Hirsi Ali really upstaged him.
I only
She's
saw like a few minutes of what Ross said. I was like, dang, I got to watch this whole thing. So it was really good.
He actually
Nice.
slammed the podium at the end of his opening speech, and I mean, Ross to get Ross that excited about something.
Fire me up.
Slam the podium.
I
Do
love
it.
Fire me up. Okay. So Josh, you're getting refined. So Rosie and Erica, they contribute to this wonderful publication called Refinery.
Refine.
Actually, Refine, rather.
You can
it's a lot of
subscribe
fun.
at refinelife.co, not .com.co.
Thank you. And so the beauty of this is we kind of see what's buzzing with those people. And these are great kind of culture type conversation questions. So the major clicks for the week were people trying to get beyond the surface level, Josh. So, you're out in the wild and you're talking to people and you're tired of talking about the weather and you're tired of, I need to go a little bit deeper. Maybe you're at the kitchen table and I'm tired of talking about this, shallow things. And so we have some conversation starters that I think the people are curious about. So one, Josh, if you could have coffee with anyone in the world, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Well, having coffee with a dead person is kind of boring.
That's facts.
Um,
Be shallow.
I think it would be fascinating to have coffee with Donald Trump. That would be intriguing.
We could still do it. He's alive. Josh and Donald Trump, man, that would be only if we could bring cameras and record it all.
intense.
Would be the best coffee.
Best coffee, big beautiful cup of coffee, large.
Erica, do you have an answer to that one?
Gosh, that's really hard. My mind starts racing. If I could have coffee with anyone in the world, living or dead, you know what? I would want to go back and talk to Richard John Newhouse. I think I would like to go back, and he was the founder of First Things magazine, huge influence on the way I think about the world, thought about the world. And I would like to just go back and talk to him and be like, look, here's what happened in the 13 years since you died. What do you think? Like, do you want to revise any of your predictions? So I think someone that
Mark,
had,
give us advice.
yeah, I know. Like, can you just tell me what to do? No. So I think I'd go back to him. But you just look at all of human history. Napoleon would be interesting, but
You'd be taller than him, probably.
I'd be taller than him. That would be fun. Maybe. Wow.
So a quick answer for me, Theodore Roosevelt.
Oh yeah,
I'm
you're
reading
really
a book
into him
about
now.
Theodore Roosevelt right now. Oh my goodness. He might be the most interesting person of all time. I don't know how we've been sleeping on Teddy.
He's awesome.
He would like wrestle Japanese ambassadors in the White House. He was a natural historian. He would just kill animals and taxidermy them his whole life. So he just had animals all over his room all the time. He read 2 to 3 books a night for most of his life. And so he would just be able to talk about crazy subjects with
He's like a
tons of
speed reader.
enthusiasm. Speed reader could just do whatever he wanted. He was jacked. He had apparently his chest sent queer sensations through Congress, is a direct quote from this book that I'm reading. That fires me up. So yeah, I'd have a great conversation.
Scrawny.
I know.
He's a self-made man.
Totally.
And his wife and his mother died on the same day, and he gets on the, he's a lawmaker in New York at the time. So he's like, I need a little refresher. He gets on the train. He takes the train all the way to North Dakota to the last stop, gets out, and just is one with nature for months and months to try to.
Like if I ever leave the podcast, that's what I'm doing. I'll be on a train out west. So if I really go through tough times, that'll be me. Like I love Theodore Roosevelt. I'm like, his dad was kind of a legend and one of the most beloved men in his life, probably the most. And he gave him some interesting advice because he grew up with asthma. He was super sick. And I think when he was about 14, he just had tons of energy. So he'd go super hard and then he would get sick. So he'd have to be in his bed for days. And then he'd go super hard again, like just be outside, do crazy stuff.
The only thing I would say, he picked a poor, choice of a running mate. So when Taft runs and then he doesn't like how Taft's doing, and then he decides to run, and we have a 3-way race in 1912, giving us 8 years of Woodrow Wilson, the worst president in the United States.
Yeah, fair. His dad was like, okay, you've built your mind because he read all the time. It's time to build your body. And so he got him into like bodybuilding, boxing. This is so sick.
Boxer, yeah.
Fires me up. Okay. So yeah, if you could throw a refine in the chat. So that was just that question got a lot of buzz. But then the other one is Christians and tattoos. Shout out Rosie wrote this one.
Our own Rosie Hall.
Josh, do we have any strong thoughts and feelings on Christianity and tattoos or tattoos in general?
I mean, look, my father-in-law's got a tattoo, and he went on to convert to the Catholic faith and start a Marian center. So, is it compatible? I mean, I in general don't like to have, I'm like thumbs down on it, but I'm not like it's immoral. I do think we need to take seriously what the Bible says, what the church says about that the body is a temple. So, I don't like anything excess. I don't like super caked on makeup, nose rings, tattoos, all that kind of stuff. If it's a distraction from who you are as a person, then yeah, I mean, that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of buyer's remorse with tattoos as you approach like your 80s, 90s, and it all starts to sag. I try and help my kids think through this.
Who wants a tramp stamp at the senior home?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
wait. So, where are we at on Christianity and tattoos, Erica? Would you say is it moral?
I would say that it's cautiously neutral on the morality part of it. I recognize there are cultures that developed that tattooing was part of them, mostly bad. I just, like I said, I think I'm with Josh. I'm the body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. I don't like deforming or doing anything permanent to it. Yeah, like that's out there and egregious. There was a whole trend when I was in college of you would do your Marian consecration, like your 33-day Marian consecration, and then get like a chain tattooed around your wrist or your ankle so that for the rest of your life you have this like visual reminder. I can see that. Like you want to have it there for life. But
some people will get a Jerusalem cross after visiting the Holy Land.
Yeah, that was a thing. Again, cautiously neutral on it, tending more towards the negative. Like, let's find another way.
What's funny is with the comments weren't even about the morality of it, like as to whether or not it was about the health implications because of the ink that you're putting in your body, which is like, oh, a whole nother thought on that. But the thing that Rosie put in here is from Leviticus, do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourselves. I am Lord. A lot of people use that as, oh, you shouldn't do it. But then you get to the New Testament and basically it was an idea of like people would get a tattoo as a way to say that they're a part of a tribe or something outside of being a Christian. So an identity or consecration other than which belongs to God. In modern times, with the added understanding and dictates of the New Testament, we know that marking our skin in itself is not immoral. But yeah, I think it's just like you think.
I'm more of the frowned upon territory, but if one of my sons was in a select military unit and they had it, I'd be like, that's actually kind of cool. But it's for the most part, I frown.
Always a fun discussion because people in my family have tattoos or other people have tattoos. From a photography perspective, looks terrible.
Yeah,
I will say
not
that.
Good for the wedding photos.
Wedding photography, horrific. Every time I see it, I'm like, this does not look good.
Not refined. Not refined.
Yeah, certainly not. So yeah, definitely think twice about that one. I don't have any scalding hot takes. I never would. I just after the wedding photography, like no, never do it. Okay, and we get into the two updates before we go to the Twilight Zone. So it sounds like a Ukraine agreement has been reached. Ceasefire agreement has been reached with Ukraine. Now, whether or not Russia signs that, who knows? So I'll just put that out there for the audience at this point.
Balls in the court of Putin, right?
Balls in the court of Russia. Hopefully we get somewhere on that. But Rubio was posted up in Saudi Arabia negotiating, which is good. And other than that update, we go to the Twilight Zone now. Josh, you're up first.
So my daughter and I were just in Washington, and we walked by the White House, and we go up the street, and there's the whole BLM painted on the road there by the
BLM Square.
Yep, and it's gone. Roll the tape, baby. Yeah, they brought out the jackhammers. It's gone.
Wait, where is this?
This is right up the street from the White House.
Wow. There's the Washington Monument you can see. They painted the whole street with a big yellow BLM
Black Lives Matter. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And now they're cleaning it up.
Wait, who's the? Was this a government decision to?
Of course,
build this?
yeah.
Oh,
the
yeah.
city of Washington,
What?
D.C. Yeah.
Yep. Post George Floyd. It's been
That's
there for the last
crazy.
3.5 years, I think.
I got to give credit to Human Events. They one of the reporters came by with coffee and donuts for the workers. It's kind of funny.
I saw that someone from the Ruthless podcast, shout out the boys, got a piece of the road. So he got it from one of the, he picked it up and took a picture of it. That's awesome.
This gives me hope that maybe
memento.
someday the middle school crosswalks in Hamden will also be painted just black and white again.
But it's, this stuff matters.
Oh, it totally matters. I will say the whole concept of painting roads is such a lose-lose proposition. If I walk on a rainbow, I hate gay people. If I don't walk on the rainbow, am I scared of gay people? I don't know. Same thing with the BLM. I'm like, just this anywhere on any government at all is the dumbest thing. I hate it. So glad this is ending. It should end everywhere around the world. Could you imagine any other special interest group getting a literal part of the road painted on their behalf? Is so crazy. It's like common sense is returning.
So the only other thing I want to mention too, the auto pen scandal. Did you see this with? I
did.
There was 5 separate pardons that were offered by supposedly by President Joe Biden before he left office for Fauci, for General Milley, for the Biden family, for the J6 committee, and for Lundfragen. I don't know who that is. And if you look at these signatures on the camera, they line up 100% perfectly. Like there's no way you could, and what, he's an 82-year-old man. He's going to sign with his pen perfectly all on the same day, exactly perfectly 5 signatures. This is an auto pen. So they put this piece of paper for all these pardons underneath the machine and signed it. So this is, who was the president of the United States? It was whoever took a piece of paper and shoved it underneath the auto pen. And so this is why, it would be actually interesting. We should put one of these 5 people up for a charge that, that they were supposedly pardoned for. This should be litigated because it's like, oh no, I was pardoned. By who? You weren't pardoned by Joe Biden because this is a joke. And so I think this is an important, and why does this matter? If you'll remember, this came out right before, Biden's office, his tenure was over, but House Speaker Mike Johnson made the point that he came up to Biden and said, why did you sign an executive order cutting off, natural gas from being sold to our allies? This is really, really
madness.
Dumb. And it's hurting my people in Louisiana. He goes, I never signed that.
Right.
And he's like, yes, sir. Yes, sir, you did. He's like, no. I signed something that would study it. He's like, no, you signed it. And he wasn't even familiar with the things he was signing because the whole point is Joe Biden wasn't signing it. Some staffer shoved that piece of paper underneath an auto pen, and that staffer was working for Susan Rice or Barack Obama or Joe Biden or someone, but it wasn't the president of the United States. We didn't have a president of the United States for 4 years. And I think we should litigate this stuff. Sue. Bring it to the courts. Have them prove that.
I was just going to say, this was crazy too.
Did you see the fake Oval Office?
Yep.
Yeah. No, where was she though? I just saw this clip that she talks about the fake Oval Office where apparently Joe Biden would speak to the cameras. But
I believe
where is this office? Was it somewhere else, like in the West Wing or something?
I don't know. And someone brought up a funny point too, because they were like, oh, well, Trump spoke from this when he spoke to the UN or whatever. It's like, but he wasn't pretending it was the Oval Office.
Right.
The part of why she's saying it exists or wherever it was is because there's a teleprompter right behind it and it's all set up for aides in order to deliver speeches. But yeah, this was a fake Oval Office. I mean, the deception was, I think we know the complete tip of the iceberg of deception of the Biden administration. It was just, the entire thing was fake. We're just now learning. And also, by the way, they're shredding all the USAID files. Like a report went out to all the people internally, like, just shred everything. Shred
everything. Bags. Right. Put it in the burn bags if you don't have time to shred it all. You're like,
yeah, that's
before
normal.
You leave drugs. That means nothing weird was going on at USAID at all.
The representative was trying to play it off like, oh, no, this is normal maintenance. We do this all the time. No, you don't. You don't bring burn bags in to shred everything as quick as you can. What are you talking about?
gosh.
Yeah, we'll never know. Unfortunately, we'll never know the depths of deception, but it was insane. Erica.
All right. Well, with Joy Reid leaving network television, I had to fill the void and watch The View this week for my crazy Twilight Zone. Whoopi Goldberg did not disappoint at all. She was interviewed. They had Dylan Mulvaney back on. The poor man, please pray for him. He is in a bad way. And Whoopi Goldberg explained that all these people who want to kick men out of women's sports are really anti-woman. Just roll that tape.
When you come in and you say, oh, these are men, competing against women, you're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything except be here. Have you seen female athletes? They know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue. When you come in.
Yeah. So it turns out we've tried this experiment with the Williams sisters. And if you'll remember, just a few years ago, Serena Williams was like, I'll play any man ranked in tennis under the, greater than 200. She wasn't going to go for the top guys. So she did. She played the 203rd ranked male tennis star and she lost. And it wasn't even close. It was like 6-2 and 6-1 and she was out. And then she went on the talk shows and she said this, if you could play that. Serena.
Yeah. I feel like this clip comes up like every 3 months.
It does, but it's fun to listen to.
Oh yeah, hilarious. We've talked about it so many times on this show.
Andy Murray, he was been joking about myself and him playing a match, and I'm like, Andy, seriously, like, are you kidding me? Because for me, tennis and men's tennis and women's tennis are completely almost two separate sports. So I'm like, if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0, and 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because no, it's true. It's true. It's a completely
the host pushing back on her.
Sport. The men are a lot faster, and they serve harder, they hit harder. It's just a different game, and I love to play women's tennis.
It's a completely different game. You can stop.
I don't want to be embarrassed. I would not do the tour. I wouldn't do Billie Jean any justice. So Andy, stop it. Yeah. I'm not gonna let you.
She also played.
I'm not going to let you kill me. So Whoopi Goldberg needs to go refresh. Refresh.
Now, Whoopi Goldberg, before she became a clown on daytime TV, was an actress herself, obviously. And
Sister Act 2.
Right. Maybe she should call for the Oscar Awards to abolish the category of Best Actress. They're all actors, right? Male or female. There should just be one Best Actor. Why should we have a separate category for women? Why can't Tom Cruise try out for Best Actress award? Why not?
I think she might actually take you up on that.
Hey, one less award for those.
I know, right? People. Cut down the length. Good.
But yeah, maybe we're choosing the wrong hill because the awards are already pretty fake as they are. Didn't we just have like that weird oh my gosh, like the trans cartel movie? We had a Jewish prostitute cartel movie.
It was so gross.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't. Yeah. Is Dylan Mulvaney back on tour because he has a book or something like that?
Yeah, he's back on tour. He has another book and a new podcast or something. And
classic.
Every time I see him,
is there another Fortune 500 brand he wants to torch?
Oh gosh! Since Bud Light's bouncing back, it's time for him to take the torch.
I mean, even with Shane Gillis, Bud Light's still floundering.
Mm.
Yeah, it'll take a while to win that trust back for sure. All right. Well, good episode, guys. We will see everyone locked and loaded for a Friday episode. If you want to help out the show, leave us a review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify are the ones that help the most. If you want to email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. So we can do that. Check out our sponsor, Charity Mobile. Thanks again for sponsoring the show. Or you could join the Champions Club. It's the best way to help us out. Thank you to all currently in the Champions Club. And